Today on the podcast, we're talking to Meeri Paas. She's one of the top compound archers in the world. And in this episode, we're asking her how she sets up her stabilizers, lengths, angles, all of it. So if you're interested in learning how the pros set up their equipment, stick around.
10. Perfect score.
If you didn't like archery, if you didn't care about it, you probably wouldn't feel as excited or as nervous as you do.
In reality, it is a lot more of a sensitive balance.
Please, can you allow yourself to be good?
My plan is still to shoot the best arrows I can all the time.
You will be even more ready, I promise.
10. And that is a perfect score.
So one of the first things that we always like to ask everybody is, what's your general philosophy when it comes to setting up your stabilizers? What kind of feel are you going for? What kind of aiming pattern are you
Ideas
going
that you're
for?
kind of using as a priority list to get everything dialed in.
Usually I stick to what I know. I'm not very, don't explore much. But usually what I'm looking for is a very slow aiming. So that it can float around, but the floating needs to be slow. And at some point, it would be nice if it stops. So this is really what I'm currently working on. And I just changed my setup last week. So you're getting the freshest possible setup that I have.
Nice.
But yeah, usually for that, and of course, vibration and everything like that.
Yeah, so kind of walk us through what that fresh setup is. What stabilizers are you using? What lengths are you using?
Angles of a down angle on the front bar
Mhm.
or angles for the back bar.
So I shoot a 30-inch in front. It's a beast with tungsten dampening, and I'm shooting 15 ounces. I know it's a little less than it's ideal for the beast, but I'm going to the gym and I'm trying to get my strength up. So I don't want to change because I really like these stabilizers. And before I shot a 0 degree, so no degree, and I just switched on Sunday to an 8 degree in front. So that means I don't have to put that much weight in front, and it kind of also slows down or drags the bow and aiming into one direction, not 4 different directions. And for the back,
Okay.
I'm using a 12-inch, also, of course, a beast, and then tungsten dampening and 13 ounces. Usually I like that it's pretty even, the side and the front stabilizer. It always floats around, maybe it's 2 ounces difference, but it's pretty similar. And that's what works best for me. And I just looked at the left and right. The out degree is 18 degrees, and the up and down is pretty much straight back. Actually, I'll show. It's the best to show. I don't know if you can see, but it goes a little lower,
It's
and
maybe 5 degrees or something.
Yeah, it's very, very little. So that's what I'm currently using. And I had a bunch of problems with my site before. It was going around a lot, and then I was really I was getting very frustrated. And then my boyfriend was like, "Okay, give me your bow." And he just told me a couple of days ago, let's say that basically you are Max Verstappen, you should only think about driving, and I'm the technician. I should do everything else. So you just drive and I worry about everything else and if it's good to go.
So my understanding for compound that it's kind of a big change from 0 degree in the front to an 8 or 10 degree down. So you described some of the feeling difference, but you've been shooting a 0 degree for years, right?
Yeah, I've only shot that. And I had an 8 degree and a 10 degree, and I was thinking maybe I'll be one day adventurous to try it. And then, well, on Sunday I was adventurous. So it seems to be I like it. I mean, I think setup for me is an ever evolving thing. So it doesn't there's always something I want to change, or like maybe 1 degree here or there. But this is my latest.
Okay.
Well, that's fascinating, though, that you described by using the down angle on the front rod. You felt like not only did you not have to use as much weight on the front rod, but that rather than the sight getting kind of pulled in any direction, now it just mostly gets pulled in one direction. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, the other like tip is to put your sidebar more out so it only pulls to the left. So if it goes everywhere, you can really control your aiming when it pulls to one direction. So if it's constantly pulling to the left, that you can still control. But if it's going everywhere and floating around everywhere and it doesn't stop, then it's impossible. So that is like one tip. And I used that last year. This year, it's a little bit more mild for me. And also I changed that my V-bar, the edge, like it used to be straight behind my front rod. So
mounted to the front of the riser?
And I put it right here now. So that really made like also a difference. It was super weird to get used to, but now I'm starting to like it. It really slowed down my sight.
Yeah, and just for more context too, I think once people start to make archery their living and their livelihood, we forget sometimes that the average person has a more limited selection of number one, time, I guess, in order to try things out, but number two, money or access to the various lengths or types of stabilizers. So it's easy enough to say, okay, well, I bought a bunch of steel weights and I can play with them. I have an adjustable V-bar. I can change that. But once you commit to like, I'm buying a 30-inch beast with tungsten, you can't really change that. So that's where we really want to give people more information and more confidence on what are those trade-offs? What does the lay of the land look like when pros are trying to set that up, and it gives the average consumer or customer more confidence to say, oh, okay, I see that trade-off. Now, a couple other caveats too. We found that in the beast, if we only offer 27, 30, and 33 inches, 98% of people are shooting the 30. With the new Vector V2 that's coming out, we anticipate that will also be popular for compound shooters, and we are offering that in more length options: 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 32. So the hope is that even compound shooters now, like we did with the Ultra V4 and the recurve, will have a more incremental changes they could make to say, okay, well, surely a 30 can't be good for everybody or almost everybody. Surely a 29 or a 32 or a 28 might work really well in some conditions, and give people the resolution to kind of dial that in and fine tune it more. But either way, the challenge is still there of, well, okay, we offered the options, but how do I choose? And if people don't have confidence in what they're choosing, they probably won't make a decision, or at least make one very quickly. So why would you not shoot either a 27 or a 33? What have you ever shot anything longer or shorter than a 30? And does it feel any different? No.
No,
Okay.
I since 2019, 2020, since I got into Ramrod's team, I only shot 30 and 12. I've never done anything else. It's it's my comfort zone. I had thought about the idea of maybe trying a shorter side rod. But I think for my height, the 30-inch is really good, because if it gets too long, then it just gets too uncomfortable. And it's I believe it's also very popular. So when people ask me what I'm shooting, it's probably gonna be the same as they are.
It's interesting for me. When I first got into archery, I was really fixated upon the moment of inertia idea of the longer bars, the stiff bars with all the weights. That was something Beastinger preached a lot for a long time. But if you keep pushing that to an extreme, you start to see that the bow doesn't feel as good and I don't shoot as good. But I don't understand why, because if you only look at it through that lens of stability, of slowing down the rotation of the bow, it doesn't factor in other things. And I think as a company, we're starting to get to that a better understanding of those trade-offs and why does it seem that people are really gravitating towards a relatively narrow range of lengths. And there's some variances with people's height and draw lengths and things, but in general, nobody's shooting a 40-inch bar and nobody's shooting a 20-inch bar, right? They're pretty solidified in a narrow range. So my next question was going to be side rods. So you said that you've been using a 12, but mounted to the front of the riser for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I know that some people have, when they started mounting it to the back of and bottom of the riser, they do shorten it up a little bit sometimes, not necessarily all the time. So what are the trade-offs you feel, let's say if you haven't shot a 13 or a 10-inch stabilizer very much, can you elaborate on the feeling difference you have between that bar mounted to the front of the riser and the bar mounted to the back of the riser?
For me, the mistake that I did is when I changed bow companies, I kept the same setup and I just translated it to my new bow. It doesn't work like that. And on Sunday, it took like almost a year for me to figure this out. That maybe I should try a little more. I think be a little more open to trying new things. The side rod being like at the bottom and closer to me made a huge difference for me. I don't know, my sight slowed down so much. And I think I've always liked the feeling, if you like the feeling of like the weight of the bow being closer to you, or like in the middle, I would say put it in front. But it really depends on what bow you're shooting. So before I was shooting a Dominator, and then now I'm shooting a Concept X.
Okay, so that's your reference frame for what the change was before and what you're doing now. Okay.
Because they have a really different weight distribution. So like for this bow, I had to put some weights on my riser to make it more heavy. So I feel like it's like I really dislike a light riser. Sorry. I really dislike a light riser, but now maybe the thing that I was really searching for in putting those weights on my riser was that I just needed to change the position of my side rod, because that really took that weight that I was searching for. It had a really simple solution, but I just never thought about it.
Pleasure.
So there it is, 6 tens in a row, and the smile on her face in real contrast.
One question I have is if you feel like, let's say the switch between PSC and Hoyt, if you look at a lot of the top pros of PSC and how they set up their stabilizers, and then you look at a lot of the top pros of Hoyt and how they set up their stabilizers, do you see that kind of difference? Does that kind of cue you in to say, oh, more Hoyt shooters tend to set up their back bar on the back of the riser versus PSC is a little more different on average? Does that help cue you into like what most likely these other pro shooters have figured out how to set things up?
I mean, a little. I looked at putting like my bar into the front. I see a lot of Hoyt shooters shoot like that. The only one I can think of right now who shoots their bar low and like closer to you is Maya Becerra. I can't think of anybody else right now. I think hers is like what mine is right now. But I think for PSC, they were mostly in the front.
Yeah, to me, it's just you're trying not to take what these pro shooters do as gospel or that it's going to be perfect for you because they have individual situations. We don't know why they're necessarily shooting that way, but we know they are in some capacity depending upon it to earn their living and to perform well. But it also in some ways represents kind of a collective average of the knowledge of the whole community of like, they've been doing it for longer with this bow, or maybe I'm looking at other PSC shooters who also shoot ramrods and what are they doing? Because maybe the stabilizers are different too versus Hoyt shooters who shoot ramrods or Hoyt shooters who shoot a different type of stabilizer. So there's some sort of value, I think, in at least knowing and paying attention to what's going on. And if you're lost, use that as a starting point, maybe. But also, yeah, try and factor in and deviate from that if you find this is not performing the way I want, it's moving too much, it's dipping one way or another. Anyway, just trying to speed up that that learning process or that data gathering process of this is just a piece. What are they doing though? I don't want to not be aware of it.
Yeah, and I think that pros, they're constantly tweaking their setup. So I think like if you ask at the start of the season, at the end of the season, something has changed. They play around a lot. They try 100 different things. They, at some point, you really know what you like and what's not working. And I think it's very important to get those like straight, that like, I don't know, this feeling I really, really don't like. So maybe, yeah, deviate. It's okay. It's okay to let go of what you were shooting before and move on to something else.
All right. One thing I don't think we talked about is, Meeri, do you set up your stabilizers differently for indoor versus outdoor versus like field or 3D?
I don't shoot field or 3D, so I can't say that. I'm gonna try this year to shoot field, so I have to keep you updated. But not really, honestly. I think there's not much of a difference between my indoor bow and my outdoor bow. Maybe I try to, if it's very windy, I'll try to compensate for maybe windy conditions somehow. But for the rest, I pretty much keep it the same.
10.
If you never tweak anything, you can't refresh that sensitivity a little bit.
Yes.
And understand the lay of the land of, if I was having a problem in the future, how would I adjust to it? But likewise, once you get something that's working pretty good, you got to trust it. You got to go into your training before the tournament and try and keep it as consistent as possible so that you can really peak in your score and performance. But yeah, so that's the middle ground. Experiment in the off season, and when you have time before tournaments, try to keep consistent as you get up to training, scoring, competing, and peaking for your scores. And yeah, over time, over years, you'll get a lot of accumulated knowledge about how all this works together, that if you never change anything, you don't build up on that.
And I would say that like most of the times, if you have a problem, it might have a really easy solution. Like, don't overthink it. Just try an ounce here or there, and you might already have the solution. So you don't need to do these drastic changes. And yeah, start little, and then if it's not working, then try something else.